G'day everyone, it's Rainy here. This is a bit of a different video from normal, but as some of you know, I host a Pokemon fanfiction podcast called The Writer's Lock. We're currently doing a workshop in our community with a focus on action, and I picked to talk about battlefields. So, even if you don't write Pokemon fanfiction, as as niche as that is, I hope you'll find this helpful anyway, because I'm trying to make this as applicable to creative writing in general as possible. So yeah, let's get started, shall we? Also, since this is a special video, I thought I'd swap the avatars, so here we go. Here's one of my old Nuzlocke protagonists, just to make it a little bit more appropriate. Alright, so as Pokemon fanfiction writers, we will inevitably need to write a battle scene at some point. Doesn't matter if we're using Pokemon, Gajinka, or something else. Conflict in a physical sense is bound to happen. So, one of the first questions you need to ask yourself when writing a fight is, where does this take place? And I do have some pictures as examples. There we go. So often when a fight is staged, it's overlooked in writing in favour of just describing the characters that are fighting. But battlefields can be their own character too, with a lot to contribute. So they don't just have to be a background texture. They can be something that can be interacted with, and they can elevate your characters to make them look smart or powerful or funny, or maybe even desperate and afraid. I think in this format it's a little bit hard to tell you exactly what to write, especially since everyone has their own style. Instead, what I want to do is show you what some different battlefields look like, and I'll be using some different shows and movies, and I'll tell you how they're utilised. I'll point out what each example does well, and you can use those to imagine how they can be translated into a written form. So, first up, let's look at two different ways to establish a battlefield. The quick way or the long way. So for the quick way, I believe the original Ghost in the Shell movie does this quite well. Here we go. If you've never seen Ghost in the Shell before, go watch it, the original movie that is. So at the start of this part of the story, the battlefield is quickly established from the helicopter as a large building with a glass roof, and there's stone statues. Here we go. We can see that the weather is rainy, and also I apologise that I can't show any videos because, you know, YouTube's a butt. But yes, through some quick exchanges with the Major, the main character, and the pilot of the helicopter, we learn that the place is not only abandoned, but has been flooded from the storm. And this is all done in about a minute, and we get a good idea of what the area looks like and what factors will be in play, so wet weather. It's nice and simple, gets to the point, and I think you can achieve the same sort of thing through a paragraph or two with, description and maybe some dialogue as well. Now, next, let's go on to the long way, and I'm going to be using Vivy, Fluorite Eye's song, another anime. They establish the stage where the fight's going to take place over the course of a few episodes, like 3 episodes or something. In this case, Diva, the main character, the one with the blue hair there, arrives at the building that is set to host a music concert. Here we go. It's called the Zodiac Festival. So, Vivy's mission is to prevent a tragedy from happening that affects the future. So she needs to spend time getting to know the target and also figure out why the target would do such a thing. And I'm not going to tell you exactly why, because that's pretty big spoilers, and you can go watch it because it's a pretty good anime. So as we follow her along, we get to explore the building, and we get to see things like the storage section down below, and the rooftop itself, which, to be honest, really scares me. That looks like a really crazy place to be. We also see the concert hall. Here we go. And that's, it basically is a representation of the hopes and dreams of the singers that are going to be standing on that stage. So when the fighting eventually happens, the characters utilize many of the areas we explored, and I just showed you over the over those past few episodes that we have been following along with, if that makes sense. So due to the exploration, we have a much better idea of the layout of the field, so that way we don't feel confused when the action shifts to a different part of the building. So in one case, you've got Vivy, she's in one part of the building in this big room, and then she escapes it by jumping out the window. And that's a pretty quick transition where we get to the area down below. There we go. We also have a emotional bond with the building and the characters. So when they do start fighting and there's all this snow falling down around them, there's a sense of sadness to it. Now let's go back to Ghost in the Shell for a moment. So it's not always in the best interest of the writer to reveal the entire battlefield at once, or have the character experience, or you can have the character experience restricted visibility. So sometimes it works to limit the point of view down to the main character, and we experience things at the same rate they do. So a bit different from Vivy, where she's exploring the area beforehand. In this case, we kind of want to keep it as a surprise, and this is what the Major is doing in Ghost in the Shell. So after the Major lands on the roof, we follow her closely, in her point of view, basically, and she opens up the hatch, and we see a ladder leading down to a mezzanine level, and also a look at the floor below that where that car is. So included in that is the pillar, and that's important. So when she does take cover behind it, it doesn't feel like it comes out of nowhere. At the same time, we don't have a very good idea of what the rest of the interior looks like, but that's where we can use the characters to our advantage here. So here we go. The Major is keeping her focus on the main target, which turns out to be an invisible tank. I can't really show you the tank because, you know, it is invisible. But yeah, after it attacks her, she calls for the glass roof to be destroyed. In this moment, here we go, it gives us a chance to zoom out, and you see the wider repercussions of the action, and also we get to see a stone carving of a tree behind the tank, as well as a bit more of the layout of the interior. There we go. You can see there's the invisible tank, kind of. There's the tree, and a bit more of the interior there. Yeah. So, since we have all those parts established now, we can focus back to what the Major is doing and what she is also feeling. As the fight progresses and the place is destroyed, we eventually end up at the tree carving we saw before, which turns out to be a representation of the Tree of Life. There it is. The bullet holes reach up and they stop just before the label hominis. You can take that whichever way you want whichever way you want in a cyberpunk story. But this is also a really good example of indicating how powerful an opponent is by showing how much damage they can do to the area and the objects around it. Okay, let's move on to the next part. Okay, so using and including your environment. Now, a battle can simply be an exchanging of blows like in a boxing ring, but it probably wouldn't work that well if you do that every single time. It can get a bit repetitive and boring. Oh, and for some reason it's gone back here. Oh, never mind. I'm trying to keep track of all my pictures here. Okay, so where are my notes again? Here we go. Your environment can add extra dimension to your battles and give your characters more to work with, such as when the glass roof was destroyed in Ghost in the Shell. So where you set your battle will affect what the characters can do, so what attacks they can also pull off, and how they can avoid attacks from the enemy. And let's go to the next one. Here we go. So by setting the battlefield in certain environments, we can also reflect the emotions of the fighters, or importance, or even symbolism of the fight itself. A fight in a storm might signify turbulent feelings, whilst a fight in a character's own house could embody danger and the risk of losing everything. In the case of Pokemon, gym leaders are bound to have their own touches that they add to their gyms to enhance their theming. So as you can tell, that is definitely an ice gym. Okay, next, let's take a look at some examples, and we're going to be using, Jackie Chan movies. Okay, so one thing Jackie does really well in his movies is not just establish the stage, but create fun environments that he can use to add to his variety and his repertoire of moves. And of course, he always makes sure not to confuse the audience. That's an important part. He may surprise the audience, but he never brings in an unexpected element that drags the viewer out of the action. Okay, so here's our first example from Drunken Master 2. In this, Jackie and his friend are having tea in a restaurant when they're suddenly ambushed by axe-wielding goons. Here we go. There they are. There's so many of these guys that they basically become part of the environment itself. Okay, and yeah, there you go. This is a good set for a battle because it pushes Jackie into desperation. He's got absolutely no room to move around in. So yeah, he's trapped on the floor by all the people down there, and he's also trapped on the top floor because there's all these waves of people coming at him, and the furniture is you might have noticed just before that's him in the middle there. The furniture is way too brittle to take more than a few hits, so he can't use it as much as he would like that ladder that we saw before. So next one. Jackie's friend that he was having tea with, there he is up the top there, he ends up changing the environment to his advantage. And he does that by destroying the staircase. Then that limits the amount of enemies coming at him. And that's surprising, but also very smart. Now, the next example is from First Strike. Here we go. So Jackie finds himself fighting underwater in an aquarium, and to stay under, he needs to steal air from his opponents who have scuba gear. So, since they're underwater, his moves are slowed down and so are the opponents, but at the same time, they have more maneuverability by swimming. And of course, there are sharks. So, Jackie needs to be mindful of his actions because they can waste oxygen or attract the sharks. So, yeah, and next is, well, this is actually one of my faves. So, it's Jackie in a rope factory. And that's every bit as much fun as it sounds. So the amount of footing available to Jackie is quite limited due to everything being up on scaffolding, but Jackie can make up for this by using the ropes to get around. Here we go, and that's him in the middle there. These aren't entirely to his advantage though, because his opponents can use the ropes as well in different ways. So there they are. They've created like a skipping rope, and he has to jump over it. So, limiting how much space your character can move around in or stand on is always a challenge, but it can make for some really fun outcomes because it causes your character to get creative. Now, lastly, I just want to do some quick examples. So, just for different environments you can think of. Here's Jackie on a trampoline, Jackie at the mall, Jackie at a crash test site, Jackie at the playground, Jackie at the Lego store, Jackie in a haunted ninja house, and also naked Jackie at the marketplace. Let's move on. Okay, so there's a lot that you can do with different environments to make the action varied and challenge the wits of your character, so experiment where you can. Alright, so we're at the end. Let's do some summarizing. Make sure to establish your battlefield so the reader has a sense of where they are and where the characters are. Don't pull things out of thin air, which will break the reader's focus. Damage the environment in different ways to show how powerful something is. Use symbolism in your battlefields to reflect the feelings or the stories of the fighters. Allow your characters to use what's around them and change the environment to switch up the action. And also, don't be afraid to restrict your character in some way so it makes them change how they normally act, so restricting their footing and that sort of thing. And, most importantly, have fun creating all sorts of different scenarios and places for your characters to fight. So this might have been a bit of a disjointed video, maybe. It's a bit hard to exactly get my point across when I can't show any videos, and also not really give you any writing examples myself. But that's what our workshop is there for at the moment. People are submitting their examples of fight scenes, and we're going to go through them and workshop them together. So yeah, I hope I was able to give you a few different things to think about, and yeah, thanks for joining me. And if you're a fanfiction writer or a creative writer in general, happy writing. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye!